Hey everybody, welcome to Dynamic Writing Duos. I have no feedback right now. I can't see any comments, but I know that everybody's going to be commenting. Hello. And I want to say hello to best-selling authors Meagan Spooner, Amie Kaufman, and Jarrod Shusterman, and Sofía, I'm going to say this, Lapuente. Yeah. How did I do? Not bad? Great. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. We're going to be talking all about writing in tandem. And for everybody who may not know you or your work, we are going to start with a round of elevator pitches as we always do. So I am going to start with Megan because you're top right for me. I'm sorry.
Of course I have to go first. Well, my name is Meagan Spooner. I write young adult fantasy and science fiction, some of them with the lovely Amie Kaufman, who's here with me today. Some of my better known solo works are Hunted, a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and Sherwood, a Robin Hood retelling in which Marion, you're making happy noises, I like it.
I love
Marion is actually Robin Hood in this retelling. And our solo or our duo books, there are a lot of them, but the most well-known ones I think are the Starbound trilogy, which is These Broken Stars. Oh gosh, I'm gonna forget
This Shattered World.
My own book. Thank you.
Hey, let us collaborate.
You write many books.
Yeah.
And the first one is about two people from different worlds who are sort of thrown together when they crash land on a very strange, mysterious planet and have to try to find a way to get rescued and not murder each other. And they fall in love, of course, because that's what happens.
Because that's what we do. Yeah, we like to think of it as like Titanic in space, only there's plenty of room on the door and they end up shipwrecked on the island from Lost.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I've taken over. Shall I take over?
Yes, go for it.
I will. So the Meg and I have other series together as well. My name's Amie Kaufman. I have written, I was just doing the maths, 19 middle grade and YA fantasy and science fiction books, some with Meg, some with Ryan Groudon, some with Jay Kristoff. The latest is The Isles of the Gods, which I wrote all by myself.
That's really good. Go read it.
I think so. It's a seafaring fantasy with a roguish prince and a sailor girl who has had enough of his and a war between the gods that the two of them need to prevent. But I want to talk about the stuff that Meg and I write because that's the stuff we want to talk about today. So Meg did Broken Stars. To that I will add, we also wrote The Unearthed duology, and our latest is The Other Side of the Sky, which is a book we wrote in part to see if we could get you arguing with yourself for the entire book about whether it was a fantasy book or a sci-fi book. So it's about a prince who falls from a sci-fi city in the sky and ends up in a magical world below, ruled by gods and prophecy. But there's more to come. We can't say too much about it, but there's we're working on our next thing right now.
Amazing. Well, I'll represent for our box. So I'm Jarrod Shusterman,
Sofía Lapuente.
and we are authors together, and we're also partners in every sense of the word. So we also we inject romance into whatever we do, no matter what. And yeah, we are screenwriters. We are professors at UCLA. We teach creative writing, and we wrote this book together called Retro. That's our book baby. And I've written a
mystery.
Yeah, it's a mystery, fun thriller. And I'll give you a little elevator pitch. So imagine if there was a really bad cyberbullying incident at a high school. A girl gets really badly bullied on a platform kind of like TikTok. In our book, we call them Limbo. Imagine if Limbo comes to that high school and goes, we're going to set things right. We're going to offer you a challenge. Can you all make it 1 year without your smart technology? No phones, no laptops. But then you get a full ride scholarship to whatever school you want. It's called Going Retro. And everyone's like getting into it, having so much fun. Every week there's a new challenge. But students start going missing and they're being kidnapped. And it's up to our protagonist, Luna, to figure out who's kidnapping her friends, or maybe she's next. So expect lies, twist, betrayal, romance, because we're a couple who can listen. So, and every single chapter title is actually the name of a song of a retro playlist.
I saw that. So you can play it while you're reading.
Listen while you read. Like maybe it's like the first chapter is girls just want to have fun, or maybe like Bye 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 is the breakup scene. You have to read to find out. You know, and we got a little QR here. Go to YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff, iTunes. So yeah, that's retro. And we're super happy to be here and talk about.
And we keep working together. Now we're writing a romance book and a horror book. So pretty different ones, but always with a romance story.
Always.
So is it like, depending on how things are going day by day in the Shusterman Lapuente house, it's like, is it a romance day or is it a horror day?
Basically, like
Exactly.
Mondays normally are horror days.
Yeah, nice.
By Friday, we are all about the romance.
On days where like I don't have good communication skills, we write the horror.
Yeah,
It becomes a romance when it works out.
nice.
I like the honesty.
Yeah.
It is very
We try our
nice.
best. Be honest about our strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I feel like working together, you need to be really honest with yourself. It probably happened to you both, like communication and be able to be, hey, I'm having a bad day, or this is my schedule today, or this is how I feel. I feel like communication for us will be the key about work and about a relationship. But no matter the relationship, even if it's your colleague or your family or whoever, I think is really important. Probably for you both was similar.
So let's jump into a question based off of this. How do you manage creative differences and disagreements that may arise during the co-writing process? And how do you ensure common ground?
I think, do you know, so this is what everyone wants to know. And hi, kitty cat.
Cats. Lots of cats.
Cats decide.
Yes, that's the answer to the question.
Come to me.
Yeah. But do you know, like, so on my my podcast, I did like a 3-parter on co-authoring, and the most downloaded episode in history is co-authoring disagreements. It's what everyone wants to know about, which is
Everyone
kind of
wants to think
unfortunate.
that we're like fighting and like that there's like all this juicy gossip and like come on dish girl kind of situation, but
They're excited to
Really
resell.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, you know, like you guys, like Meg and I aren't a couple, although many people think that we are, but probably because like we were flatmates for years, and you know, like we're like
write
sisters,
romance
like
together, and
and you know, my kid has her auntie Meg, and like, you know, we're family. I think that what's always kind of interesting about a I don't even want to use the word disagreement, but like having two different ideas about what could happen next, because that is actually different from a disagreement.
Yeah.
When you have two different ideas about what could happen next, there is definitely like the power struggle way to resolve it, where you just go to head and someone wins. And like, if you're both decent writers, then that winning idea is probably okay, but there's a better way, which is like, you know, Meg and I call it secret option C, which is like, if I want option A and she wants option B, we actually, like, rather than going head to head, you try to have the experience of coming around and standing side by side and looking at the problem together. Because if you're both good at what you do, there's always a reason that each of you wants what you want, you know.
Like
there's
option
always
A might be you know, the pacing is like slower right now, so we really need to pick it up and inject some action and inject some tension into the story. And option B might be, you know, I'm really needing to feel their like romantic connection more right now because it feels like they're kind of distant. And it turns out there's like a secret option C where like one of the characters can save the other in a really romantic way, but it's also like action and tense. And it turns out that that secret option is the best one for the story. But if we were writing by ourselves, we might have gone with like our first instinct, which wouldn't have necessarily, it would have been fine, but it wouldn't have necessarily had that kind of magic that comes from having two different brains working on the same problem.
That's so true.
Yeah,
ours is similar. We do like we call it like the 2 yeses principle. Like we both have to say yes to something, and any one person has veto power. So at any moment, she could just, or I could just delete a page, 2 pages. We have full. We don't do it, but we have completion power. And the reason being it's really important is because I don't want something to go in the book that go, well, I love my book, but I resent page 3. Like, no, I'm just gonna. I want to be cool with everything, happy with everything, feel like it's a part of both of us.
And you always make us go to the option C. That is the best one. It's like, let's get out of our box and see why you're coming with this idea, why I'm coming with this idea, and where we can find each other agreeing. So I think it's pretty similar.
And like Sophie and I, the way we write is we don't like. So I know some co-authors, they'll they'll do their own perspectives and back and forth, but we just blend one voice. And the reason we do it is just because we want to be able to have something that's really, you know, cohesive, that's just us. And it can be slower at times because, you know, we're two really different people, like different gender, you know, different culture, different first language, different religion, different sex, all of these different things about us. So like the Venn diagram of like what fits between Sophie and Jarrod isn't so big, but we feel that it makes a really unique telling. Because
but it's a nice spot over there.
Yeah,
it's small, but it's good.
And we start to be able to figure out each other and second guess what the other person would do or say.
Yeah, well, because I mean, you don't write with someone so you can drown out their voice. You write with someone because you love their voice, and that means making space for their voice. Even, and maybe especially when, you know, we all have those moments when our co-author like has started to have an idea, but then can't quite maybe verbalize it and goes, oh, you know what, never mind, I'm sure what we've got is fine. And then it's on the other person to be like, no, you had a hesitation. What was it? Let me help you go deeper into it. Because, you know, when you're writing with someone whose voice you want to hear, that's, that's how you handle it. And as you say, there are so many ways to do it. There are so many, you know, and for some co-authoring relationships, it's like one person outlines and the other person writes. And like, if that works for everybody and that's what they all signed on for and everyone's happy with the work and the credit, then like 2 thumbs up, but it's not our jam.
It's not how we do it.
No.
That's awesome. I've had a few comments kind of the same vein, few questions, but can you share any insights into how you both divide the responsibility and tasks of writing a novel?
So I would say something that happened to us is like we are really conscious about our strengths and our weaknesses. That we are really open about it. It's nothing bad. It's like we are different people, and we got lucky because we basically like different things. Like Jarrod, obviously grammatically he's way better than me, but then apart, I feel like he's really good at structure. He really controls the timing of the scenes, and I love like all the character, the voice, the thriller aspect, the plot twist. So I feel like we really work like that, and we always try to go with a Hispanic voice because I don't know, we feel like we connect that way. And so in the Spanish, we always have a Spanish in our book, so obviously I control the situation, and it's really important for me and to show Hispanic culture. And so he always let me like, okay, you know that thing, because sometimes he will be like, oh, a grandma would say that, and I'm like, no, an abuela will not say that. Like, trust me. So
I don't win the arguments of like what's going through the 16-year-old girl's head. Like I usually don't win this. So I've stopped. So I don't try. So there's certain things that I'm really clear on. Here's what, and then but by being humble in that sense, then I get to go, okay, I have to take a step back, but I also can just kind of from the corners like really learn. And then as time goes on, I'm starting to realize a lot of those things that maybe I was arguing about in the beginning, I've learned from Sophie. And now when I'll bring it to both of us to our writing, she goes, oh, I really like that. That really worked out. So I do know it's going through a 16-year-old girl's head.
But we work at the same time. Most of the time we use Google Docs. I don't know if you use it too, but on Google Docs we can see each other at the same time, so we can be writing together. That's how we do it.
This is so fascinating because it's
yeah.
so different to what we do.
Yeah, it's very
I want to know.
But like
So
it's all
like-
it's similar in that it's super blended, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And like we live on opposite sides of the world, so we're writing at different times. So she's writing while I'm asleep, and I basically get to wake up in the morning and there's like new book for me to read in my own story. It's like fan fiction being written by a really amazing author for a story I love. It's great. But we tend to divide the story into 2 points of view, and we each take a character. And in the past, the book has alternated by chapter. The project we're working on now is more blended than that because we wanted to kind of like see how that, we just thought it would be fun and it suited this particular book. But we usually like, so I'll write a chapter from my character's point of view, and then I will email it to Amie, and I'll go to bed and she'll wake up and read it and kind of like lightly edit, kind of comment on it, and it'll be like 15% critique and like 85%, oh my god, this is amazing, I love it. So you get that like really great feedback that makes you want to keep writing. And so she'll do that, and then she'll write her chapter and send it back to me, and we'll do the same thing. And so by the time we're like finished with the first draft, we actually have a pretty polished book. Because we've been kind of editing, and sometimes we will go back and make more structural revisions as we go. But and we do all the brainstorming together. I don't know if Amie, you want to talk about how we do that, because way we did it for our current project was kind of funny.
I know, I keep nearly saying the name of our current project. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that our system would work for everybody, but I think in part it works because like we're working on our 8th book, but also we wrote probably 1 million words of fan fiction together before that.
Yeah.
So we've been writing for so long that we've learned, when we write separate books, our voices sound a little more distinct, but we've learned how to make it sound like they're 2 distinct characters, but they belong in the same story. But yeah, look, the bad version of our brainstorming is we do it on video. But the good version of our brainstorming is we do it in person because, you know, I'm sure you guys have the same experience that like you might sit down for a brainstorming session, but that's only where some of the gold comes from. And then like after you finish, someone goes and starts like unloading the dishwasher and then goes, wait, hang on, I've got it. You know, and so like we last year spent a week, we got an apartment in Brooklyn and spent a week together. Got it. Well, I hope our Airbnb host isn't watching because basically what we did was we got blue tack and we stuck cards up all around the entire room. And then when we took them down, we were like, oh no, the blue tack's left a mark. And we had to go and get all these, like, picture me, like an Australian who doesn't know any brands from America at CVS, just buying like every cleaning product I can find.
We tried to use magic erasers and then it started taking the paint off the door. So then we had to try to like get something to kind of scratch it a little bit so it wouldn't look shiny where we were starting to rub it off. I mean, fortunately they gave us a 5-star review and hadn't noticed, so it's all fine. But yeah, we definitely accidentally trashed our Airbnb house by brainstorming in it.
Yeah, but I think it's that time around the brainstorming session. So when you're trying to do it on video, it's harder because it's like, okay, we're all going to sit down and think of things, and you don't get the break and then the ideas and then
and we like to like go to on-site brainstorming places. So like I think I can give this hint for our upcoming project. We went to the Met Arms and Armor section to walk around and get inspired. So let that be a little tantalizing hint for you guys.
They have some very cool suits of armor there.
It was really cool. But you know, we'd just be like wandering around and suddenly one of us would be like, oh, we should, you know, do this, or what if this character did that? And having that organic, that ability to just whenever the idea comes to you, spit it out. We have a Slack channel that's just our private Slack channel, and that'll let us leave each other ideas. We have multiple channels, most of which is just us chattering to each other because we're friends, but then we have like book specific ones, and every now and then Amie or I will wake up and there's been like 2 pages of random things put into the book thing because somebody was thinking about it, you know. So it's fun when I woke up the other day and Meg was like, I've totally figured out how to solve this entire situation, and then there's just like a wall of text. And then the other channel she's like, oh, that thing we were talking about, here's a brand of it I found that's really handy, and also would your kid like this show? So I mean the thing
like that, but similar, but similar.
Exactly. Yeah, we work on a time frame too, because you know you can take the Spaniard to the Spain, but you can't take the
I'm a night person and he's a morning guy.
Yeah.
So many times we have the same sensation of I work at night and he wake up with the stuff and then we work together and then
it's a great feeling.
It's
so nice.
Yeah, but
we do kind of live together. We don't actually, but like we are so constantly talking to each other. Like not a day goes by that I don't wake up in the morning and talk to her as she's going to bed, and vice versa. So I mean, it's not the same, obviously, but you are still like very much a part of the other person's life.
Well, and I think it's funny, like, you know, those bits that are not the writing are actually really important. Like for you guys, the everyday living together, and for us, the having that ongoing conversation about just like what's going on in our lives is important because it glues you together and it positions you so that when you do both have different ideas about what should happen, or when one of you, you know, tries to work all day and then at the end of it is like, well, that didn't work. Sorry, there's nothing. I know I said I was going to do X today and I didn't. You've got this really strong foundation beneath it. And I think that there's got to be a point every book.
Once you support each other and like you have to
think first.
It's true that we needed to put boundaries because at the beginning what happened was like we were so excited about our first book that I remember one time going out dinner Friday night and we took the book with us. Like we were just talking about God and actually we were talking about the kidnapping moment. So we were like, we need to kidnap this girl, like for sure. And then we realized people is looking at us And we are like, this is not okay. Like, the people looking at us to leave. Us on Friday night, not stopping to work. And it was like, okay, we need to do this better. We need to set up some boundaries because we are best friends too, right? So we need to separate a little bit.
Yeah.
That's why I like what you said about not taking just one day. You were like, let's walk in Brooklyn. Let's walk for a week. Let's feel it. Let's go. How it goes.
Yeah. Sorry, we both just started laughing because the same thing. One time when we were at the hot springs and Meg out of nowhere yells, well, she had two incidents. One, she yelled, "Oh my God, what if it's aliens?" And every head in the
But that wasn't the worst one. The worst one was zombies. The worst one was what if we bring this character back from the dead? And I think you were the one who were like, but is it weird if she's a zombie?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, but she's not.
There's you just see what we search in Google.
Well, you look up and this group of really lovely women who are clearly having like a day out.
Or like on the other side of the pool. Like a cluster being like, what is happening?
Yeah. I mean, related readers, this is all these Broken Stars stuff. And it is, I'm going to say, like, this is the 10th anniversary of these Broken Stars this year. And we can't say much yet, but well, and Meg and I are looking at doing something very special at the end of the year to celebrate Broken Stars' 10th anniversary, and we can't say what it is yet because it hasn't come together yet. But be on the newsletter because we'll tell you what it is, and I'm excited about it. So excited that I'm saying things even when I'm not meant to. So.
So dialing back to the very, very beginning, I guess there is a lot of general questions coming in from the chat asking, how did you all meet? How'd you meet? How'd you become a dynamic duo?
Yeah. How about you guys? I want your meet cute.
Yeah.
There's a meet cute here. So we actually met out totally unrelated to writing at all, and then we started writing.
Nice.
So we met. We were out. We were in LA.
Yeah.
And we were in Santa Monica, and I was walking, and I saw her, and I was like thinking, man,
you're in a bar.
We're in a bar, and I was thinking like, this is like 5.5 years ago.
Who is that?
And I was like, I barely even thought about it. I just went straight to her, and she was speaking. She said C, and I'm like, okay, I speak a little bit of crappy Italian. There's a chance that C is an Italian C. So I went for it, and I was just like C, and we started talking, and I realized it was Spanish. So I was very wrong, but we continued talking, and we couldn't stop being together, and just like day after day after day. And then after maybe about a month, one of her friends explained that she was saying C because she was talking to a friend pointing at me saying, what do you think about that guy? So it all came like full circle. So then after I would say about a couple months.
Writing a screenplays first.
Yeah, so I was writing, we're both writing screenplays. She was producing in Los Angeles. I was working on an adaptation of one of the earlier books that I wrote called Dry. And we just decided, hey, why don't we just start working together and telling stories together after about 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
And then ever since then, we did screenplays for a year, and then we moved back into continuing with books. And then that's where Retro came from. Yeah. And now we plan to have a new book every year, hopefully 2 a year.
Nice. What about you?
However the chips fall.
Yeah.
But what is your meet cute?
Our meet cute is fan fiction, essentially.
Oh. Yeah, sort of like sort of round robin storytelling in a fan fiction universe, and we just both joined this community for it and didn't know anyone. And in the way of like kindergartners, basically, Amie kind of like came over to me in the area where everybody's like creating their characters and just chatting, and she's like, I don't know anyone. If you don't know anyone, do you want to make 2 characters who know each other? And we ended up making these 2 characters who had this like epic, years long, like on again, off again, will they, won't they romance that like everyone in the game was like hooked on.
We accidentally wrote this thing that became legendary in the community that people still talk about. And I mean, that's how I make all my friends, is just, hello, I think we're friends now.
We'll be friends now.
Which tends to work pretty well. But we instantly clicked. Like it was we'd both been writing for years, and we've been writing in communities for years. And I think we both just knew on literally day one that like something very special was happening.
The very first scene we wrote together, we were already, there's a thing that happens when you write with somebody and you know they're writing really well, and you can write a line and then stop and hand the thing over to them, and they can write the next line and finish the thought that you had. So you can like, there's one scene in, I think, Unearthed where, you know, I had a tear like hang halfway down the cheek of my character, and she opened her chapter with her character reaching out and like brushing away the tear, which is exactly what I had seen, but I didn't like leave her a note. She just knew. And we do that all the time. And we did that in that very first scene we wrote together. It was just like an instant, it just worked. We have very different strengths when it comes to the ways that we write, but we have very similar sort of storytelling instincts and like likes and dislikes in the stories that we like to read and that we like to tell.
Yeah. And like the first time, I guess, to give you an idea of how kindergarten I am with we're friends now. The first time Meg came to Australia to live with us for a year, we had never met. I think like Meg had been discussing what to do next, and you know,
I just graduated college. And
you
she
know,
was like, come for like a year. She'd been like, come live, you know, come do a gap year, which we don't do in the US, but we should. Come do a gap year in Australia. And I was like, oh, haha, that'd be great. You know, not really thinking about it. And then somehow over the course of the year, it became real. This is Amie's superpower. She can like convince you to do anything.
That's so
cool. And the first time we met was her picking me up at the airport to live with her and her fiance for a year.
Which was entertaining in many ways because he's got a broad Australian accent that Meg could not understand. And so watching the two of them attempt to communicate, where he'd say something and she'd very politely say, oh, I'm sorry. And he would say it again, and I'd watch her give up and be like,
just like
repetition is not the answer here. And she'd just
every now and then he'd like walk in and hand me something that I'd apparently like nodded that I wanted him to get for me. Like he'd like hand me a piece of toast and I'd be like, what is this? What? But he had asked me if I wanted it, and yeah.
We were a happy little household. It was very entertaining from my point of view.
These are
she
both
could understand
really
both of us,
stories.
but had no interest in stepping in and helping.
No. Well, and you know what? They're besties now, so it worked.
M Harris 3791 asks, how do you collaborate on creating your characters? So you have an idea, but like how do you go from there as a duo?
For us, we do a lot of planning. You know, there's a lot of like plotters and a lot of
character interview.
Tons of character interviews, and sometimes we just have to game it out. Like sometimes the first 30 pages is a little bit of a go try this, trial and error, and then she'll say, no, I didn't see this at all. Oh, I didn't see it this way at all. I see it more this way, and then we kind of have it locked in. And sometimes it just takes doing it. But a lot of the time, it's pretty much just planning.
Yeah, I would say with character interviews, we always recommend to people when they ask how you do it, you can find them online. It's like 100 questions, and they can go as deep as what is the main fear of the character, but it can go to like favorite snack of the character, because you need to present a real human. Not only you can like there are things that maybe you will know about your character that you will not show on the book, but they are there and you know them. And I feel like character interview is really important to know the main idea.
We really believe in like the iceberg technique of like, you know, 7/8 of what you know about the characters never actually said on you know on the page. You got to know it all. So
but the reader knows if you know it or not. Like, you know, in the same way that we all sometimes meet someone and go, I don't know why, but I don't trust you. Or I don't know why, but I like you immediately. It's all the stuff that we're not seeing, but like somewhere in the back of your little monkey brain, not your human brain, you're sizing it up. And I think it's just like readers can tell, does this go beyond surface or not? I think they can tell whether we know, even if because there are little inconsistencies if you don't know that show up.
That's true. It's really true.
And I would say that was one of our main challenges, because screenplays, sometimes you don't need to go that deep. Like we all know, but it's fun to not go that deep. Like we all know Mean Girls and Regina George. You can't write just a Regina George exactly, because she's really fun, but it's two-dimensional maybe if you just put her like that on a book. So it was at the beginning, our first draft was a little bit two-dimensional in the Mean Girl of our book, and it's going to be our biggest challenge to make her three-dimensional, and we learn a lot from it.
Yeah, this is cool because like you guys are kind of coming together to like stand behind one character, whereas Meg and I are creating complementary characters.
We create two characters that are designed to together create an interesting story. In a lot of our books, like the plot is important, but just as important is the relationship between the characters. And We do a ton, just like you, we do a ton of stuff that like never actually shows up in the book. We long before we start writing the book, we sort of collaborate on scenes where we each sort of write a little bit about what each character does in the scene. And it won't necessarily be a scene that shows up in the book, or if it does, it'll be a scene that's like way expanded. So like in These Broken Stars, the very first scene we did was a scene that showed up in the book, but the scene we did was like very long. It was a scene where Lilac and Tarver meet in the bar of this like grand spaceship that they're traveling on, and she like flirts with him and then totally snubs him in this like really cruel way. But we like role played, essentially. We like had like a little bit that what, you know, Lilac did, a little bit what Tarver did, and that way we can see how they interact with each other, and we can see like where are the places where they're going to butt heads, because that's always kind of the best part, especially in the beginning, is to see like where is the friction, like where is the tension between these characters. And you can also start to see the seeds of like what is going to ultimately make them fall in love with each other, like what are the complementary traits that are going to make these like a really compelling couple to follow.
I think it's really interesting, the difference between two. One day maybe we'll try like two perspectives. Let's see. I'm hearing you, and I'm like,
well, someday we're going to write one where it's not easy to tell that it's like two people. Like we're kind of like moving toward that in our writing, and we've talked about it a little bit. So
yeah, I mean, life is long, and we're all going to write a lot of books. So it's, you know, I think something that you feel like you're going to do forever, one day, you know, several books down the line, you're like, actually, you know, I feel like stretching. So
we wrote like a kind of fun thriller, and then now we're kind of being pulled to write a horror and then a romance, and we're like, okay, we're super down for that, but we didn't expect ourselves getting into horror. But fun. And just writing together, I mean, for me, like, it's kind of interesting, like the only way that I really learned really to write collaboratively is in this way of blending voices, because I originally started, my dad, who's written a ton of books, his name is Neil Shusterman, he's got a ton of books, and growing up, he would always give me notes on my writing. And then eventually when I started doing some co-authoring with him, I kind of learned to write through emulating his voice and then growing my own voice out of that. And then so it really was was really natural for me to be like, oh, Sophie speaks in this way, her voice is this way. Okay, so then we're going to try to mesh them together.
Yeah, I think that's really common. I think a lot of writers, whether it's, I mean, not all of us are fortunate to have a parent who's an author, but like we still grew up with authors who were really influential that, you know, we would write fan fiction for, or, you know, when I first started writing, I thought I wanted to sound like Neil Gaiman. And so like everything I wrote, I was like, oh, do I say? And of course that's nothing like what I sound like now, but learning to be a chameleon, learning to write in a number of different tones and voices is an incredibly valuable skill. That's how you come up with different kinds of books, different kinds of characters, and it's how you work seamlessly with a partner. I think that's a really fantastic insight.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, like I look at what we're doing now, like Meg and I are in the middle of writing, how would we describe it? Like well, you know what? I cannot imagine our editor is watching this, so I'm doing it.
Okay.
There's a lot of people watching.
Hi,
so say it very quickly.
Okay. Like a comedy, fantasy, very queer. You know, if you liked Knight's Tale, if you like Gentleman's Guide, if you like My Lady Jane, then like again, be on the newsletter, because you'll start to get hints, because I'm terrible at hints. But you know, our first books were like very much, you know, like it's Titanic in space, it's aliens, it's you know, shipwrecks. It's so, you know, you really evolve. And I think, you know, like when Meg says the ability to be a chameleon is kind of what it's all about, I think that's right. Like both to chameleon your way through different books. Like, you know, if it's Jarrod, you know, writing with your dad, who I launched one of your dad's books once, and I was like, this is my chance. I'm going to get some Neil Shusterman wisdom. And I kept asking him questions, and he's like, you know, you just vibe it. You just write it. And I'm like, this is...
it was... I had to glean a lot from him, that now when I'm writing with Sophie, I'm like, you didn't tell me any of this stuff.
Right.
Why?
Right. But I mean, I expect for him, it's probably, he's like he's so incredibly accomplished, it's probably like asking a centipede how do they walk. As soon as they start thinking about that many feet, they're like, I gotta sit down.
Yeah.
But being able to be a chameleon means you're still you, but you're merging with people, you're matching a certain type of story, you know. I think it's the next level that comes in your writing.
Well, it's so cool to think about how that blending of voice is related to fan fiction. That's essentially what it is. I never thought of it. What a cool way to learn. It's cool.
There's a lot of folks in the comments that say like all good writing has to come from somewhere, and some of it comes from fan fiction, and it's the absolute truth.
I think it is an excellent way to learn how to write, because it's almost like having training wheels on. Like whether you are taking the characters from Harry Potter and like putting them in a different world, it means that you don't have to create those characters. You can just kind of focus on the world and focus on recreating the dynamics and the sort of tensions and things between those existing characters. If you're putting an original character into Hogwarts, then you're able to practice doing the character without having to like invent a whole world. It's a wonderful way to get some of your 10,000 hours of writing in and learn in a way that's really fun. And it often has a really like healthy built-in audience where you can get people who are enthusiastic about your work and might even be able to give you some feedback and some critique. I'm a huge fan of it.
I have the most important question that we're going to ask all evening right here for Megan. And that's, did you try the Vegemite on toast?
When I lived in Australia?
Yeah.
Yes, though I didn't understand what I was doing the first time.
The amount of Vegemite you put on the toast is really key in that situation.
I put it on like peanut butter.
Oh,
no.
That's incorrect.
That is, I just like heard this noise from the kitchen and like
tears in my eyes. Like it was like the worst thing. I have very strong emotional reactions to food, and I put something in my mouth that I don't like. It's like I have a breakdown.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to be a good friend, but it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I will say they have these things there though that are called Vegemite Cheddarmite scrolls, and it's Vegemite and cheddar in like a cinnamon roll, but it's not sweet, it's savory, and they're so good because they take care of putting the proper ratio of like carbohydrates to Vegemite together for you, and you can't like mess it up and regret your life choices like I did.
Our second most commented is, everyone wants Jarrod and Sofía to write a book based on their meet cute.
So
we do have it in the plan. I mean, there's so many.
We have the title.
So many books we want to do, but we have the plan.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's going to be essentially about us, because Sophie was somebody. Well, do you want to explain a little bit?
It's just our story. Like we talked this with Kathleen Glasgow. I don't know. You know her. She wrote Girl in Pieces, and one day she was asking about that, and she was like, "You need to do a story." What happened is like I was about to leave United States. My visa was expiring, and I was ready. And I'm the kind of girl that thought like she was never going to be in love. I was super ready to be single. Like I have all my plan, and then I meet Jarrod, and I'm like, oh, now what?
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
In 24 hours, I called my mom, and I'm like, I'm not going to leave. Like I met this guy. She's like, Jesus, Sofía. No. So then I asked for a renewing the visa, like all the pressure, like I was like maybe getting deported, like a lot of pressure, a lot of like drama. Yes. And then 6 months after, I took Jarrod to Spain to meet my family, and then my mom, when she saw him in the airport, she was like, "Nah, I get it."
Yeah, I get it.
But it was like, it's a really intense story, like with some drama and a lot of visa stuff, but it has really romantic parts at the same time, because we were having to take like really main decisions really fast. Like we moved together for months after we met. I needed to decide if I was going to stay in the country. Like I have made other interviews to go back to Spain. Like a lot of stuff going on, and we know the title of the book more or less.
So it's called 143 Heartbeats, which is
I don't remember.
I believe that's the number, which is how many heartbeats it technically takes to fall in love. So they say it takes 4 minutes to fall in love. So we've been working on a little bit.
Cheesy.
It's so cheese with drama, and we hope everyone loves it.
Go into it. That's
Sounds
better than
amazing.
any. I was sitting here trying to come up with C titles for you. I see it. I like it.
Yeah.
C. Anyway,
Yeah.
yours is better.
We do have a couple of giveaway winners. I just want to toss out there from Myra, who is our amazing marketing head who's working background for this chat. Thank you, Myra. I have picked Love for Horses to win an awesome giveaway from Paper and Word. You're going to be getting a gift card, and you're going to be able to choose your own hardback sleeve for one of your books. So you'll be able to keep it all nice and safe. And Brit Reading, as well as Lovely Bookish Universe, you have both won an OwlCrate box of your choice from the OwlCrate.com store. We will be reaching out to you later on in the week. We're a little bit busy this weekend, but stay tuned because you're going to be able to, have something cool from OwlCrate-A-Con. And for everybody watching, just so that you know, we have more posts coming up in the nest with some ARC drops and all sorts of bookish giveaways this whole weekend. And I'm going to get back into some more comments. I'm sorry for taking it and steering it away to my awesome guests. I would like to know if you can share a special or specific moment in your co-authored work that you believe would not have been possible or as successful if you'd worked on it alone.
Oh, like everything.
All of them? Yeah.
Like all of them?
Yeah.
I thought that was a good question. I have to go on to the next one.
No, it is a good question. I'm just
Easy.
No, I mean, it's
trying
the
to get
secret
the
option C thing that we were all talking about.
Yeah.
Well, and also I think sometimes
yeah.
I tend to take more risks in my ideas when I'm writing with Amie, because I feel like if I come up with something that's really a bad idea, she'll call me on it. But usually she doesn't. Like, so anyone who's read this, so I don't want to spoil anyone for anything. If you knew what we were talking about when we told the story about bringing someone back from the dead, killing someone and then bringing them back from the dead in the hot springs, that book and that idea like never would have happened if we weren't working together, because it at the time was such a ridiculous idea. But together we kind of like pulled it apart and we were like, what is there in this to explore? And it turned out to be, I think, one of the most emotional. We actually got this amazing email from our narrator of that book who was reading that part, who told us that he like started crying while he was reading the book. And like he and Amie are actually like besties now, but
I make friends with everyone. That's what I do.
But like that whole thing wouldn't have existed, I think, if we were working by ourselves, because I think and it works both ways. Like if one of us had an idea like that, we would have been like, oh, that's a ridiculous idea and moved on. But when we're together, we can kind of like make each other braver, which is kind of a wonderful feeling.
Yeah. And I think about that moment in particular, again, like not to be oblique, but it's a major character death essentially.
Yeah.
And Meg had this, I could picture her like coming running out of her bedroom and staring at me going, hear me out. And I just was like, all right, here it goes. And, what if we kill her? And I'm just like, all right, back the truck right up.
I saw it in her face. She was like, oh God.
Oh God, what do I do with you? But when Meg has an idea, it possesses her whole body and it's happening and there's nothing you can do about it. But the thing is, like, so that came from Meg, but then I think the kicker on that came from, like, I then had to write the grieving scene that went with it. And that grieving scene...
She was the one who executed this idea in a way that is just... Well, I can say this because I didn't write it. It's amazing.
Well, and I think the thing is, it's different to what you would have done, because when I was writing this grieving scene, I hadn't lost my dad yet, but I had been in hospital with him at moments when, like, he was being resuscitated. We thought that we were losing him. And so I went very deep into my own grief about what was happening and what I knew was coming to write this scene. And I think, like, that was the unique part that I brought that that Meg couldn't have brought. And Meg brought this like wild idea that was so much worse for the characters than anything I ever would have come up with, because I just want to hug all my characters all the time and look after them, and Meg's always the one being like, suffering is story, Amie. Suffering is story, we've got to do it.
But you will pull me back from it when so this isn't something we co-wrote, but we basically partially co-write a lot of our solo stuff.
We co-write everything.
Yeah, we work together on our solo stuff. And my very first solo series, by the time I got to the third book, I was so like tired of writing it because I'd never had to write a trilogy before. When I signed the deal, I didn't even know it was a trilogy. And I was just kind of like really ready to be writing something else. And I just wanted to like kill all my characters and like rocks fall, everybody dies. And Amie was the one who like pulled me back from that. And she was like, now what does it actually accomplish? Like, what does that make your readers feel? Is this how you want your readers to feel when they finish your series? And I was like, actually, no, I like my readers. So we can like push each other to go further, but we can also pull each other back if we're like usually having some kind of emotional issue with our work. It's usually the cause of it.
Yeah. I saw you guys have an idea before. What was...
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's really like there's a couple things. I mean, one in a more like broad sense, like I feel like writing with a partner allows you to be more of a yes person rather than a no person. Like I'm allowed to have more bad ideas, right? And if I have 20 bad ideas, one of them can be really good. So I love that I have somebody who I can feel that space to do that. And then I would say the other thing like that I wouldn't specifically have really written without Sophie is a lot of our romance scene lines, our romance stories, and we really love put a lot of emphasis into our romance stories in whatever book we're writing, whatever genre. You know, just kind of the idea of true love and really, you know, how people should treat each other and how you don't want to put in the bad boy and how you want it to feel pure. And I wouldn't have known that, and I wouldn't have felt all of those feelings and been able to draw on that out if I had met Sophie and then we started writing together.
For me, I feel like it helped me a lot with the culture. I feel like because the different cultures, we have all the time these situations when I'm like, oh, and then the character should do this, and Jarrod is like, this is illegal here. I'm like, okay. So then we do it in a different way. Like all the time, we even if I've been here for 8 years in the United States, at the end of the day, there are things that until you don't get put into a weird situation, you don't know the whole rules. And that's what's really fun. So I feel like all the time we find like, oh, okay, so this doesn't work this way. Like high schools in the United States and in Spain are really different. The rules are different. I don't know. But it's pretty fun because I learn things from the country I live in. But yeah, for example, for me, having like maybe people having wine, a 16-year-old is like, oh yeah, whatever. It's a family. And Jarrod is like, no.
Maybe for the cool mom, but not for the normal.
But he's
mom.
like, yeah, but you can put it. Like, okay, I see. Okay, give me a second. Like, then we take it a different way. Like, it's just it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a different statement depending on which country you're in, and the stuff
just
you don't know about.
Even I always love to write way in America because kids can drive cars as 16-year-old. When in Spain it's 18, I'm like, so cool, high school and cars at the same time. High school and bikes. Yep. I'm like, I love that thing.
That's how we feel in Australia. It's like if you can't ride your bike or take public transport, then you can't do it. So this car business is wild.
A lot of folks have been asking, what advice would you give to folks looking to write together to foster a strong and productive partnership?
Oh, I think for us, it would have to be the advice we got at the very start. Hello, kitty cat. Like Meg and I wanted to write books together and were nervous to do it because we thought, what if it ruined our friendship? What if we had a fight? What if we whatever? Like we were young when we started writing books together, and like losing a friendship seemed like a thing that could happen. Whereas I think now
it seems ridiculous.
But at the time it felt very real. And so we were at the World Science Fiction Convention and we saw these two incredible authors, Ellen Kushner and Delia Sherman, who are like the grand dames of fantasy literature, were on a panel together about co-authoring, and we thought, all right, well, you ladies managed to not only co-author together but stay married the whole time. So we went and found them afterwards in the bar, and we're like, hello, can we buy you a drink and get your advice on how to, like, we're scared our friendship will end. And I still remember they kind of looked at us with this like delighted bemusement and went, well, you can buy us a drink, but the answer's really simple. Just care about each other more than you care about the story and you'll be fine. And we still buy Ellen and Delia lunch whenever we're in New York. And, you know, we're friends with them all these years later because we never would have written without them. But that's
we always said that if ever the sort of professional side of our relationship got in the way of our friendship, we'd stop writing together. Like we would just, no questions asked, just because the friendship was more important. And I think you know, you guys actually alluded at the very beginning to the importance of communication. And I think in terms of more practical advice, although I think care about your partner more than the work is actually very practical and good advice. In terms of communication, I think it's really important that you're on the same page about like the whole process. Like, are you aiming for publication? How long do you anticipate working on the book for? Like, I think a lot of people who start co-authoring together hit this place where like one writer wants to write, you know, a chapter a week, and the other one wants to write a chapter every few months. And then the first person is resentful of the other person for being slow, and the second person is resentful of the other person for pressuring them. And, you know, you just have to sort of make sure that you're all on the same page and that you both want the same things for the story. And like, take care of each other. Like, one of the things that I love about working with Amie is that we like, it sounds kind of mercenary, but we kind of keep track of like, how well is the other person doing? And we like almost have a numerical scale of like, if I'm at a 10 and Amy's at a 4, then I will take on more responsibility because like I can handle it.
Yeah.
But if the positions are reversed, we will, like, if I'm having a bad day, but then it turns out like, you know, someone died in Australia, I will immediately forget my bad day and I will become the officer on deck in our working relationship. And all of that is communication. Like, you have to be able to talk to each other honestly and openly, and, you know, really be a part of each other's lives if you're going to be a part of each other's work lives.
Yeah, which for you guys is easy, but presumably most of our aspiring co-authors are not sitting here with their actual partner.
It's definitely a prerequisite of being in a relationship to you know, to put the relationship before anything else. So,
and I would say communication, and admire the person that you're working with.
Yeah.
Like, I see how you both are talking about each other, about the scene the other one did, and it's like you both admire each other. You both admire what is doing the other person, as a friend, as a everything, and as a writer. And it's like, I would recommend that when you start to choose that partner, because it's like, I have friends, for example, that I love you, but I will never live with you, for example. So sometimes just because someone is a really good friend, maybe it's not the best partner for you to be writing together. So I would say admire and communication. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to know what Megan's cat's name is.
That one's name is Viola. The other one's name, who has not shown up yet, is Lavender.
But now you've said her name, so give it a minute.
Well, she's asleep in a bowl on the floor of the kitchen, and she's like been asleep in that bowl for like an hour before this even started. So I don't know, she might just be like passed out in bliss. I don't know why that bowl in particular, but I mean, cats, who knows?
I just had a really, really great question come in, and I'm interested to know this myself. So after the process of your drafts, obviously you're going to get edits and revision. How do you tackle revising with another person?
First, a heart attack. I always get a heart attack when they first
right?
A moment of, Jarrod, it happened. The email, 1 second.
It's
let's
like
see.
the world's over. It's all over. How are we gonna do this?
The thing that happened to us, we learned, be careful when you open it. Like, Jarrod and I were having a nice night. It's not the day to open it. Like, it could ruin our movie day. Like, we need to.
But we open it anyway.
But we talk about it.
So what we do is we move the world. We open it, but we go, if we're on a date, then we're gonna have to reschedule this for next week.
Yeah, like, we need to. But now we have learned, and I will not open it again. If it's not,
you will.
I will not. I'm telling you.
Because even if it's a genius edit letter, you're still going to be angry at it.
Like, it puts you in a different place.
I have to.
So, and then we start to revision. We need to talk about. Yeah, probably he'll go to the bathroom.
I have to know.
But I feel like we need to work together. You need to talk about everything, and we go with the same thing. Like, decide what you think about every single note, and where do you think it's coming from, and then we sit together and we start to check them. And many things what happened to us, like we talk about every solution. We go with the same thing. No one takes a decision alone. So we talk and digest everything before we start to write and start to
everything is decided upon together, unless it's like a small thing, and then I'll go, hey Sophie, I took this liberty here and letting you know, what do you think about this? And then did I waste my time, or do you love it? And then
usually do you guys like track changes while you're doing it? Like, if one of you is going in to edit, Is the other one watching, or do you like leave track changes to have a look at later, or?
Yeah, so how we do it is we actually just do a system, and we probably could track changes, maybe it would be better, but we do colors, and we'll add everything in different
We do
colors,
that sometimes, actually.
instead of like tracking the changes per se, because we do it on Google Docs rather than Word. So so yeah, we're not tracking.
We are color people. Like colors is everything for us.
Colors.
For everything, like what we like, what we don't like, what we want to review, what is new, what is a really good scene, what is like absolutely I don't want this. Like we have the red for I don't want it, and the maroon like.
Right, and we put it in all caps in the document, like not even on the comments page, just like in it, like obtrusively, like I don't like this, and I'm like, all right, well, we're really in this thing.
Yeah, but no, I don't like it, and then obviously we talk about it. But it's like mentally, it's like my notes. I'm like, okay, this is the things I want to talk about, and then I can explain myself why yes, why not, why I think that maybe that scene should be moved or whatever. But again, talking everything.
Yeah.
What is your?
We use track changes. We are kind of like paranoid about version control with our manuscripts. Like we actually say, like, every time we pass it back and forth, we save a new version of the manuscript. And the reason we do this is because we have learned, like, we didn't start out doing it this way. We do it this way for a reason. There's been a lot of like lost sections of manuscripts that we just have to like be okay with the fact that the version that was lost is always going to be amazing compared to the version that you try to remember. But so we have like, you know, hundreds of versions of these manuscripts by the time we finish, but they're all dated, so we know which one's the newest one. And we will go through, well, first of all, we discuss the edit letter and we like yell about it together, because I think every author kind of goes through like a stages of grief response with an edit letter. Like you get mad and then you're in denial and you're like, no, this is, you know, this is all bull. Everything's fine. It's perfect as it is. And, you know, you kind of have to like support each other through that until you come out the other side and you're like, actually, no, this makes sense. There's a reason why we're working with this editor. Oh God, editing is so much easier with a partner, I have to say, because like you can keep each other on task, you can bounce ideas off each other, and like,
well, and whenever
was it that we rewrote the ending like 18? Was that These Broken Stars?
No, that was These Broken Stars.
We also did that with, but also the
other side of the sky. But
yeah,
These Broken Stars, we kept rewriting the ending and sending it back to our editor, who like we had absolute faith in. Like we knew she was right, but every time 95% of you would be like, I reckon we've got this now, and 5% of you would be like, but do we? And then you'd be like, send it anyway, see what happens. And you know, maybe those doubts I have just come from me somehow, you know, having got tired. And she'd send it off and she'd be like, yeah, not yet, try again,
but not there yet.
But not there yet. Yeah, I mean, we love her. I went on to write with her again, she's brilliant, but like, I think having someone in the foxhole with you is really helpful, but also every time you hit something where you're like, well, this is impossible and there's no way to fix it, it's so helpful to have the other person glide in like a swan and be like, why don't we just do this?
Yeah.
And I will say,
or we could just do that.
And to back you up on things, like, because you don't, part of the revision process, part of the editing process is knowing what edits to take on board and what edits not to take on board. You don't blindly just do everything that your editor tells you. And so sometimes like one of us will have like a really strong reaction and be like, no, I'm going to die on this hill defending my position. And then when that happens, the other one's like, all right, I'm standing back to back with you on that. I may not completely understand why you're on this hill, but I'm going to fight with you. And that can feel really good.
Yeah, I feel like with editors, you need to act like you're one person. Always like,
a united front.
But to the editor, you're strong in your opinions. Like,
yeah.
The same always.
Yeah.
Yes, I had never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. We would never go back to an editor until we had one view.
Yeah.
Really important.
Yeah.
I have to thank everybody on this panel right now, because during our live chat, we just received the notice from Karina that the Nest has hit 10,000 users.
Wow.
And it's been just a little bit like 6 months.
That's amazing.
I mean, so it should.
Congratulations.
As one of them, it very deserves to.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for being an awesome member of the Nest, Amie.
Very early on. It is a lot of fun.
Thank you. I'm beyond honored and excited to be able to be hosting any part of this weekend and to be able to speak with all of you. Sophia, Jared, I have a question for you after our live chat for our awesome TikTok coordinator, Christiane. And Amie, Megan, I would love to pick your brain about your new work after, but for everybody else, unfortunately, you don't get to know. And you'll have to hang out with us tomorrow. And our first panel will be growing up middle grade. So be sure to hang out with Tara, who will be hosting HD Hunter, Scott Rankin, and Nebula, a winner? Nominee, P. DeJelly Clark. So please come hang out with us at noon, and you're going to learn all about the future and now of middle grade novels. But for now, bye.